everyone, Amy here with kind of an aha moment and kind of a brain twist. This one is so cool and I'm so excited to share it with you. So my husband John and I were watching this TV show, kind of sci-fi, kind of similar to Star Trek for those of you who have ever watched that. It's called Oracle. And without getting into great detail about the whole entire show, on this particular episode, the first officer, who happens to be a woman named Kelly, ends up but herself from 7 years before ends up appearing on the ship. So, throughout the interactions and all these other things, her younger self looked at her current day self and said, "You failed me. There are only 3 things that I wanted to achieve. One was to be a captain of my own ship," and she was a first officer. The second was to be married, and she was divorced. And the third was to have children, which she didn't have. And so the younger self looked at the older self and said, "I'm really disappointed. You failed me." And the older self was obviously really taken aback. This totally and completely blew my mind to the point that I had to have John stop the show and we had to have a conversation. Because I wondered if your former self, whether it was 7 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, however long ago, were to all of a sudden show up in your current day, would they be pleased with the way that your life turned out, or would they be disappointed? And it really started a huge conversation around whether or not you have achieved your dreams that you had all the way back then. And if not, if you've changed your mind, which is always okay, and decided that those dreams that you had initially had back then, once you got more information, your dreams changed. And so you didn't pursue that. Like, I'll give you an example. When I was younger, before I met my husband, I was not real big on marriage and kids. To be honest, looking back, I was scared out of my mind to think about being married with children. So I went to an arena that I felt comfortable, which was working. And I told myself that I wanted to be a vice president of a major company with a big office with lots of windows by the time I was 30. Now, right there, you're probably saying, "Well, Amy, why weren't you dreaming that you'd be president or CEO?" That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But that was my dream. At the age of 30, was I doing that? No. At the age of 30, I was staying home with 2 little babies. So my life turned very different than what I had envisioned years prior. And so I question to you, if your former self were to pop in on you right now, would they be happy or disappointed? And why? And know that if they were disappointed, it might be just because they didn't have the information at the time they made the dream or the desire or the goal. And now that you have that information, that's no longer a goal, and that is fine. But if it's something that you still want, that you haven't achieved, the good news is you still have time. You still have time to do whatever that dream was that you have not accomplished, should you choose to still pursue it. Now, once you wrap your head around that, we went a step further. Because, I don't know about you, but I've been to different seminars and stuff where they tell you to write a letter to your former self or to write a letter to yourself in the future. And it's so abstract that for me, it's a really difficult task. But seeing this episode of this TV show really hit home for me. Seeing what it was like to have your former self actually plop into your current day self, which is not something that you typically do in those seminars. But something that I encouraged my husband and I to try and travel down and explore was, what if we were to plop down into the lives of ourselves in 10 years? What would we want it to be like? And I never really thought of it like that. So we brainstormed and we thought about a lot of things. And I said, what we should do is write it down like in a time capsule and then put it away and then take it out whenever that date is, whether that's 7 years or 10 years or 5 years, and see how close you get. Because once you write it down, if you kind of visit it every so often, you activate your reticular activator and your mind will go out and find ways to achieve whatever you wrote on that paper. So, not only do I challenge you to bring your old self into your current day situation, but I also challenge you to take your current self and transport it in the future and see what kind of life you want and see how close you get. And see if you change your mind along the way, because really we can only make that decision based on the information that we have right now. In 3 years, we may have different information that may take us on a totally different journey that we could not even envision, fathom, or anything else given our situation right here, right now. So it'll just be interesting. Are you up for the challenge? Go ahead and write it, put it in a drawer, in an envelope, and let's open them in whatever date, 5 years and 10 years, and then report back. I think it would be just so cool. Anyway, this was a mind twist. It was kind of an aha exercise, and I hope that it enlightened you and have you start to pursue some of the dreams that you haven't done if you still desire those same dreams. Until next time, hope you're having a great one. See ya.